everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leanna. Today I thought I would do a quick get ready with me, although I don't know how quick it's going to be, so maybe that's a lie. And just talk about a few things, including my move to Patreon and talking about some of your assumptions that you've made about me on Instagram, whether they are correct or not. So if you want to just stick around, I'll just get started. I'm going to start with this little mini Milk makeup blur stick. I like putting this just in the center of my face. I do think that it kind of fills in my pores a little bit, and so it just kind of makes things go on a bit smoother. I'm going to use the Nudestix concealer stick in light 1. So I have moved over to Patreon. I have a few different tiers on there starting at $2. The reason being that I do work really hard every day of the week to produce content. I'm editing, filming, and I also do a lot of research for videos, not just videos, but also when I write certain posts over on my Instagram, sometimes I make written posts that are topic discussions, and I'm doing research, taking a lot of notes. So that takes up a lot of time. Whenever I do discussion-based videos, I'm researching. I have a video that I have been working on for honestly a few months now, because I wanted to make sure that I got all of my research correct and that I got all of the information that I needed for it. And so, you know, a lot of effort goes into some of the stuff that I do. I have my jewelry that I do that takes time, it takes money, it takes resources, basically. Anytime that I make a video and I have to go out and buy a product, more resources. And I'm a person with very little income, and I feel like at this point, because YouTube is a platform that doesn't support small creators, I don't think it's wrong of me to try and get a little bit of support where I can find it. I don't think that's wrong of me, considering that I am working quite a few hours out of a day. So what can you expect over on my Patreon? Well, that's a good question. So on the lower tiers, well, first of all, let me put it to you this way. Everything that I put over on my Instagram and over on my YouTube, it's going to follow me over to Patreon. Those will be public posts. So every time I post a video, it will be posted on my Patreon. You'll be able to view it there too. Anytime that I make a discussion-based post on my Instagram, say I made a post about anti-Semitism, that will be a public post over on my Instagram. So those are public posts, but what are the additional posts that are going to be over there? There are going to be discussion posts that won't be over on the other platforms. So for example, the $2 tier gets you access to any blog style post. My very first post that I made on my Patreon was a post about health, disability. That would be a blog style post. Written discussion topics I would consider blog style posts. I wrote a movie review the other day for the movie Velvet Buzzsaw. That went up on my Instagram, and it also went up on my Patreon. And then on my Patreon, I wrote discussion questions that did not go up on my Instagram. Now, I made this post public. Ideally, in the future, those posts will not be public. Those will be for patrons only. The reason I made this post public was to hopefully get some of you interested in what I'm going to be posting, because I would like to get a certain amount of pledges before I start posting consistent content over there. Otherwise, I'm just adding even more work to my workload and nobody's participating. And that's not the purpose of this. You know, I've already created a lot of work for myself, and I would like to have ideally $20 per month in pledges before I move forward with what I had in mind for my Patreon. And what I had in mind for my Patreon were lots of different discussion posts. And if you've seen the types of discussions I hold on Instagram and I hold on YouTube, these will be varied. These will be not just about movies and TV shows, although there will be a book and TV club that I might extend that to movies as well. We'll see. But I felt like because books and movies are larger, books and TV shows are larger than movies, that this would be a more fitting place to start, because I could ask people to join me in watching or reading the first few episodes or chapters of a book or TV show, and then come back and we can discuss certain questions. Like in my Velvet Buzzsaw discussion, I came up with a few different questions. So I came up with 5 different questions for Velvet Buzzsaw, and the idea is just to bounce around different ideas about themes and symbology, what the meaning is behind different things that happen in the movie, and that would carry on throughout different discussions we have for Book and TV Club. Book and TV Club starts at one of the higher tiers that starts at $10 per month. When you're a $5 and up pledge, you get a discount to my jewelry store. That's a 10% off code. There will also be different access to video posts depending on how much you pledge each month. And if you're at the highest tier, you'll get sent either a bracelet or a pair of earrings. Not everybody has pierced ears, so that's why I say you'll get a bracelet or a pair of earrings. There would be a live stream, hopefully once per month. Again, this is after I get a certain amount of participation on there. I'd like to do a live stream once per month. Now, the topics on there, again, it would vary, but I would like to kind of have maybe like a monthly sort of recap of some of the stuff that I talk about over on my Instagram, maybe sort of like the calls to action that I talk about on there. So, for example, over the past month, there's been a lot of stuff that I've talked about on my Instagram, such as the stuff that's happened with Jussie Smollett, such as the stuff that's happened with the Covington Catholic kids, such as the stuff that's happened with Liam Neeson, such as the stuff that's happened with the pregnant woman in Sweden being attacked by security. It would be sort of a place to round all of this up and talk about it in an open space. So basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is think of it as an extension of what I'm already doing, just more of it, and giving you a chance to support me in a more tangible sense. And you would be helping me with things like medical bills that I have to pay each month. You could be putting that money, helping me put that money back into the content I create for you. When it comes to things like me every day sitting down and doing things like contacting businesses and individuals on racist behavior and stuff like that, that's not what you're paying me for. I'm not asking you to pay me to be a decent human being. I think that would be fundamentally very wrong. The type of payment I'm asking you for is for actual creation of content, of which I actually do quite a bit. and a lot of artists online get paid for their content. The little guys are often left out, like me. And when you don't have another source of income, or your source of income is very low and you have a lot of bills, that's what I feel like Patreon is for. And I would definitely appreciate people who share my link. Even if you can't donate, share my link with people you think you would be interested in it. So today I'm going to do an eye look that is a little bit inspired by the Colourpop Good Sport palette. That's the one. I almost had a disaster there. I was like flinging stuff all over the place. So I'm going to start with a Colourpop single eyeshadow. This is 143. And this is like a matte magenta shade. Am I in focus? I don't think I am. Come on, camera, you can do it. There we go. Just putting that in my crease area. My friend Camille sent me some Colourpop stuff for Christmas. This is one of the things she sent me. And if you have like any suggestions for things you'd like to see on my Patreon, like just tell me. I'm totally open to that. I'd like to make sure it's a place where people are getting what they're paying for. I'm really excited about the book and TV club, though. I think that would be a very fun thing to do. So if we can get it to $20, right now I'm at half of my goal. My mom is my only patron right now. She's a sweetie. She always supports me. I love my mom so much. So let's get on with some of these assumptions. Assumption number 1 came from my friend Raven, Makeup with Raven, or Raven Alexandra, here on YouTube. She assumes that I'm a very compassionate person. And I would say I am, sometimes too much. I have a lot of empathy for other people, too much. The reason I say too much is because I want to... Sometimes my care for others leaves me without caring enough for myself, if that makes sense. I feel like I've always been the kind of person who puts other people ahead of myself. And that definitely can be a thing that can hurt me because I don't take care of myself as much as I should sometimes. I'm too busy thinking about other people. And a lot of people think that that's a way of like bragging. It's really, really not. It honestly is a bad thing to be thinking too much of other people, because there have been a lot of times where I've constantly said, for example, just like yes to everything, and I've never really been the type to say no, even when saying no would be for my benefit. So yes, I'm a very compassionate person, but that's not necessarily always been a good thing for me. The good thing about being a compassionate person and a very empathetic person is the fact that I generally am always able to see the other person's side of things. I'm always able to see it from their point of view, which is helpful. So then I'm going to go into the Satin Center palette and take the shade Rosary down here, which is a satin sort of pink shade. It's more pink than purple, whereas the other shade was a pink purple. I'm going to take that on a smaller brush and start running that lower down through the crease. So the second assumption is I'm a very mild-mannered person, but I love horror movies, and that comes from Alex, aka Alex the Alchemist. And yes, yes, I would agree with that. I I generally watch at least one horror movie a month. Halloween is one of my favorite times in the year because I just go on a horror movie binge. I'm definitely a very mild-mannered person as well, so sometimes people don't expect me to like horror movies as much as I do, and then they're like, oh, really? Kind of like my mom. My mom is a complete zombie fanatic. She collects skulls, like, figurines of skulls. And she has, like, Walking Dead stuff. She's just a huge zombie fan, and she has been since I was a baby. Her whole life, basically. And so people meet my mom, and they're like, you're into all that? So I guess that's where I get it from. I get it from her. She's very happy to have somebody to watch horror movies with. Just going back over that with a little bit of the first crease shade. I think I'm just going to take that same shade on the outer corner, so that rosary shade. I'm just going to use like a small shader brush like this one from Real Techniques. The next question comes from Dottie. I think this is the same Dottie who comments on my videos. And she asks, or she says, you like tea over coffee? Yes. I'm not a coffee drinker. I tried to be a coffee drinker when I worked at the grocery chain here in Canada called Loblaws. I don't know if they have that in other countries. It's basically the biggest grocery chain we have here. And I worked in the bakery department. Only for about a month I worked there, back in 2010. I ended up having to quit basically because it was a lot of labor, more than my body could handle, being the way I am with my health issues, and I was much healthier than what I am now. So I tried to be a coffee drinker then because I was having to get up very early in the morning, like sometimes around 5:30. That's no fun, but I'm sure a lot of people have to do it, so yeah, I tried to drink coffee and it basically just gave me the shakes, which is not a feeling I like. So I didn't like it. I do like some tea. I don't like all tea. I like it better than coffee. I would say I prefer overall hot chocolate. I have to drink a dairy-free hot chocolate though, so I have to buy that online. It's from Castle Kitchen, dairy-free brand, and it's an instant hot chocolate. A lot of dairy-free hot chocolates are not instant, that's why I'm mentioning that part. And then also I like hot cider, very nice. There's one for the Keurig. I can't remember what brand it is, but it's really, really good. So I would say the answer to this assumption is yes, with a but. Next one is also from Dottie. You have a significant other. At least I'm assuming that's what she meant by that. She said SO, and that's usually what that means, is significant other. And no, I do not. I haven't had very good luck with guys. I did some very not so good things to me. I had a boyfriend when I was 21 who did some not so very good things to me. And I had a boyfriend when I was 22. So basically, the reason why I don't have a boyfriend is because it's hard to date. I do have a little bit of trust issues, but basically the biggest reason why is because it's hard to date when you have a lot of health issues and you are nearly 30 and living at home with your parents. I feel like it's hard to explain that to people. I don't know where to meet people, not just romantically, but in terms of just making friends. I've made a lot of friends online, but like that's not the same thing. I don't know where to meet people and then how to explain my situation to them. So, no, I don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or anybody. And I do feel a bit lonely at times. This is Team Captain from Colourpop. This is going to go in the center of my lid. I recently kind of discovered that I think that I'm like demisexual, which is under the asexual umbrella. I feel like demisexual could probably go for like a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people might be demisexual, which is basically like you don't feel sexually attracted to very many people. It takes a lot for you to feel that way about somebody. And I feel like I'm that way. And I don't think it's because I have health problems or anything. I think it's just the way I am. Because even when I was a lot healthier, I don't think I really was that interested. I've always been the type of person who like really enjoys being around people, but I don't necessarily need that to lead anywhere beyond being around a person, being in love with them, and having certain amounts of physical contact, but not necessarily, you know, sex. Oh, and for the record, Team Captain is a matte army green. I don't know if I said that or not, but that's what that is. It's gonna look a little weird until all of this comes together. Next assumption, you speak more than one language. I do not really. I know little bits of other languages, but not enough to say that I speak a full second language. I know a little bit of Spanish. I was teaching myself Spanish on Duolingo for quite a while, and I just kind of gave up on that because I'll be perfectly honest, it was getting to the point where it was kind of hard for me to follow. Probably would have helped if I was taking notes, which I wasn't, because I was like, I can just do this. I don't need to take notes. I think if I went back to it and actually started taking notes, I would have been able to keep going at it, so maybe someday I'll do that. And I know like the tiniest like few words of French. My grandmother is actually French Canadian. I should know more French than what I do, but I don't. And I know a little bit of Japanese, not enough to say that I know the language. I think I could learn a lot more Japanese if I dedicated myself to it. I've picked it up very easily from just playing games, watching anime, reading manga. So I think that's something I could do. And that is a language I would like to learn more of because I would like to go to Japan someday. On the inner part of my lid, I'm going to take this shade here. This is Exodus. It's a matte glitter infused sort of acid green. That came from somebody named Lila. Next is from Jules. She says, when I first saw your account, I assumed you were chronically ill like me. I assumed this before looking at your profile. Yes, I am in fact chronically ill and chronically chic. I'm going to go back in with Team Captain just to make sure I don't lose that. I think I'm going to use Black Forest from Emme Cosmetics, which is a satin black and green all over the lower lash line. Next, my friend Amy from Miss Amy XOO says that I'm a night owl and it's difficult for me to get up early. I'm not a night owl, however, it is difficult for me to get up early. And that's just because of being chronically ill. I need a lot of rest, so it is hard for me to get up earlier in the day. I'm usually in bed by 10 o'clock, and I need to sleep for like 10 to 12 hours. I'm not lying, I just need that amount of sleep. And I don't nap during the day, like I just can't. doesn't work for me. So yeah, I just need my sleep at night. Amy also assumes, by the way, I'm just going back through the crease. Amy also assumes that my favorite color is purple, which is true. My favorite color is purple. The last few are from my friend Jay, Dr. Superfly, or Canadian Jay's Adventures. Now, they assume that fall is my favorite season. Fall is not my favorite season because that means that winter is coming and I hate winter. So my favorite season, probably spring. Summer can get a little hot where I live. And, well, they live in Ontario as well, so they know what I mean. So, yeah, I like spring, although these days in Canada, or at least where we live, it's like we don't get very much fall or spring. It's basically like we get a few days of spring, a few days of fall, but basically it's just winter to summer. And Jay probably knows what I'm talking about. Although they're in a little bit of a different city than I am, but overall they probably experience very similar weather. But I prefer spring just because the temperatures are fairly nice and even. I can't tolerate a lot of cold, damp, so I don't know, just for spring usually works out fairly well for me. And the next one is that I'm 5'6". I'm not. I am shorter than that. I usually say I'm 5'4". The reality is I'm just slightly below that. On a day where my spine isn't so compressed, perhaps I'm 5'4", but usually turns out I'm slightly below that. You know, it's like kind of patchy there. Don't know why it's not like sticking. The very last one that Jay assumes is that I have had anxiety and or depression. And right now I would say that I'm not depressed and I have very, very little anxiety. I would say that I have very mild situational anxiety, meaning that in certain situations, I recognize that I get a little bit anxious. So for example, meeting new doctors usually makes me very anxious. Making phone calls has always been something that makes me anxious. I'm getting a lot better at that. I think the reason why is because my parents always made phone calls for me when I was a kid. So I never had to worry about that until I was older, and now that I'm older, it became difficult for me. I've gotten better at it. It still freaks me out a little bit sometimes. It seems like such a small, insignificant thing, but I don't know. It freaks me out. So those are the two things that nowadays make me a bit anxious. It's really not bad enough to ruin my life in any one way or another. However, when I was younger, yes, I absolutely had bad anxiety and depression. At one point, I was actually hospitalized. I was put into this day treatment program when I was 14. This was a program for kids. I don't know how old exactly, but I was 14 and there were kids younger than me and there were kids older than me. And it was something you would go in there for at like 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. So basically like a school day. And that's what you would do there too. You would have school there and you would have therapy, group therapy, one-on-one therapy, just for kids who had psychological issues. And I did that there for quite a few months. And at one point they suggested that I be hospitalized because I had my physical problems as well, and they could treat that there while I was being treated for my psychiatric issues. So my parents decided to do that. I'm going to use the Essence Lash Princess Mascara, Sculpted volume. Yeah, so I could get my schooling there. Since I was out of school, I was in a wheelchair because of some issues I was having with my right leg. I could get all of my schooling done there, and they could get me in-hospital physio, in-hospital psychiatric care, and my parents decided it would be better to just like hospitalize me there. And this was a place where, this was a ward where the kids had a lot of issues like schizophrenia, bipolar. It also bordered the eating disorder clinic. Some of them were, some of the really little kids were very, very troubled. They were throwing themselves against the walls at night, trying to hurt themselves. It was very upsetting for me to be there because I felt like I didn't need to be there. I wasn't a harm to myself or anything. But I did need help of some sort because as much as I didn't think there was a psychological problem, there was. And I didn't like talking to the people there, but I had to, and it did help. I definitely was in a situation where a lot of people were receiving treatment for things far worse than what I had. Like, I had some depression and some anxiety. And having to sleep day after day in a ward where people were trying to hurt themselves was very upsetting for me. I'm using the E.l.f. Beautifully Bare Face palette. I'm using this bottom shade here, just like a neutral sort of peachy shade. And I know why my parents did it. It was just easier. Definitely just easier to get all the treatment in one place. And my neurologist was there too, so he was able to come in and see me and check on how my headaches were doing and things like that. I was able to get MRIs while I was staying there, just different tests and stuff. So it was all good in terms of that. It was just sometimes I just felt so out of place. I did learn techniques there that helped me cope more with my anxiety and depression, which was good. Is I was able to return to regular classes in the fall. Still didn't end up sticking out the entire last few years of my schooling. School for me was just really tough because of the environment was just not great for somebody who had physical issues and then being kind of bullied because of that. And then you have anxiety and depression make you feel like you just can't deal with it. So yeah, I definitely had anxiety and depression, not so much these days. I'm also going to use the highlighter, the one here. It doesn't give off a whole lot of color and shine, just a little bit. I kind of have to dig for it. And I'm just going to use this mini Marc Jacobs lip cream in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. That's the finished look. I think it came out really well, and I think that these colors really do look like the Colourpop Good Sport palette, in my opinion. So I hope that I got to all of your assumptions. I think I got them all written down and then answered for you. And I hope that I explained what's going to be happening on my Patreon well enough for you. If you didn't understand that, if I didn't clear that up well enough, then just ask your questions down below and I'll try to explain it better. But hopefully I kind of cleared that up. Anyway, I post Mondays and Fridays here on this channel in the afternoons Eastern time. All of my links are down below in the description. I would appreciate you giving them a look. You can subscribe if you want to. You can have a look at my Instagram if you want to, and you can have a look at my Patreon if you want to. There's never any obligation. So thank you so much for being here as always, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone.